We last saw Akana of the Fallanassi very, very briefly in the Dark Nest trilogy, as they were Jason's last stop on his Force pilgrimage. But truly, Akana has not played a major role since the Black Fleet Crisis by Michael P. QB McDowell. But I found in Vortex that Akana and the Fallanassi sort of fulfilled a bit of the role that Cersei did in the Odyssey. When Odysseus's men first land on Cersei's island of Aeaea, they behave like swine, and so Cersei transforms them into pigs, except for Odysseus, who has consumed the herb Molly and is immune to her magical effects. In Vortex, the Fallanassi's ability to create illusions means that the entire moon of Pyder thinks that there is a plague outbreak, and once the Sith arrive on the Fallanassi's island, like Cersei, they fall prey to illusions and hallucinations as well. And only Luke, who has training in the White Current, is immune to those effects. So all I really knew going into Vortex was that Abeloth was not, in fact, dead, as I suspected from the end of the previous book, because the back cover blurb basically gives it away. So, a brief summary. After Luke Skywalker made an unexpected alliance with the Lost Tribe of the Sith, and together they seem to have defeated the dark side entity of Abeloth. That truce seems to have failed, as the Sith are now desperate to discover the identity of the Jedi Queen that they saw on the throne in the Pool of Knowledge. So Luke and Ben are on the run with the Sith apprentice Vestara once again by their sides, while they head for the Almanian moon of Pyder, home of the Fallanassi, who are definitely not on their side. The Jedi on Coruscant face a difficult decision of whether they should finally break with Daala's galactic alliance, send support to the Skywalkers in their fight against the Lost Tribe of the Sith, and throw in their lot with the slave revolts breaking out all across the galaxy. So Vortex sees the continuation of most of the plot lines that we saw in the previous book, Allies. Luke and Lord Taalon of the Lost Tribe of the Sith decide to stay on Abeloth's planet to try to uncover more information about her, and so the other Sith are sent back. And Jaina and Lando are likewise sent back to Coruscant to report on what happened. But in the process, they are attacked by pirates who seem to be dark side users as well. When the alliance between the Skywalkers and the Sith break down, especially when they discover that Abeloth is not dead, that somehow she switched bodies with Dion Stad, Luke and Ben take off after her, and they bring Vestara with them, who, again, is undercover for the Sith. Back on Coruscant, Kent Hamner sends Jedi Knights to deal with the situation on Bladu Sextus. And the Jedi step into a horrible situation where the Mandalorians are shooting the Centauriform aliens who are peacefully protesting. So it looks like the Jedi are actually siding with the slaves, as they should have been doing from the beginning. This leads to an absolute schism between acting Grandmaster Kent Hamner and the rest of the Jedi Council, who decide, screw Kent's caution, they're going to send support to the Skywalkers, and they're going to support these slave uprisings, and they're going to break the horns out of their imprisonment in Carbonite, because even though it's very apparent that all the Jedi have returned to normal, Daala doesn't want to unfreeze Valen and Gisela Horn yet. This leads to a big confrontation between Kent and specifically Saba 17, and it ends in Kent's tragic accidental death, which Saba bears responsibility for. Tahiri Vela's trials seemed to go off the rails at the end of the previous book, so Lando gets her a second lawyer, a Lordian woman named Sardon. But Sardon and her original lawyer, Buatu, don't get along well. Tahiri fires Sardon and is back with just Buatu representing her, and her trial will carry over into a third book as well. Of course, thanks to Vestara, the Sith follow the Skywalkers to Pyder, and they all end up on the Fallanassi's island, and Luke is trying to figure out where Abeloth is. Of course, it all culminates in a big fight. Luke seems to kill Abeloth a second time, but it's not that easy. There's another fight with her, and just in the nick of time, the Jedi Stealth X starfighters show up. Abeloth escapes. Vestara kills Lord Taalon because he was turning into a creature like Abeloth. She's like, oh, well, I didn't do it to help you, but I'm gonna come along with you again. The Jedi rescue the hordes and spirit them back to the Jedi Temple. Booster Tarek has a bunch of Coruscanti politicians held hostage on the Errant Venture while they have a charity sabacc tournament. And as the book ends, the Jedi are prepared to awaken the Horde siblings from their lengthy carbonite slumber. So let's talk about the Skywalkers first. Luke remains deeply distrustful of Vestara. Ben remains confident that he can turn Vestara from the dark side. And I can see both of their arguments here, although it seems like Ben is sort of winning out, because how many times can Vestara help the Skywalkers go, I didn't do it for you guys, okay? And then continue to tag along with them without it being apparent that she really doesn't want to kill the Skywalkers. Luke at times seems to be frustrated with Ben's more trusting nature, but I feel like that's what makes Ben a Skywalker. That they meet someone who's using the dark side and they're like, I can change them, I can make them a better person, and like, I don't ever want that Skywalker trait to change, because it's like the epitome of being a Jedi, that when push comes to shove, yes, you'll duel the bad guy, you'll eliminate them, but you're always hoping that you can change them and bring them over to the light side and make them an ally instead of an enemy. Did Luke find out more about Abeloth before she rushed off her planet and ran off to the Fallanassi? Maybe a little. There seems to be historical precedent for the fact that she's done this before and that she exists, but we don't really have any better grasp of her origins other than just like, she's evil and maybe she has drained planets before. She is crazy strong. Luke and Ben also have now a tangible example of why you shouldn't drink from any of the freaky pools or dive into them on Abeloth's planet, because Lord Taalon falls/swims through the pool of knowledge, and he sees that vision that Luke saw of Alana by a throne surrounded by a bunch of different beings, and he's like, oh, there's a Jedi Queen, we must find out who she is and eliminate her. And then he also is seeming to change into a being like Abeloth, and so yeah, I 100% think that Vestara in killing Lord Taalon was doing the right thing because he was turning into something freaky, and we don't need two freaky beings in the galaxy right now. One is enough. And Ben and Vestara's flirty relationship continues, in which she is trying to get information from the Jedi, but at the same time, she thinks Ben is pretty cute, and Ben knows that he shouldn't trust her, but also, she's pretty cute, and he keeps having to help her out, and we'll see where that goes, but also, they're 16. This does feel a bit like, you are the first person my own age that I've really interacted in great depth with, and you're cute, so of course something's gonna develop there. But also, not sure how long-lasting it would be, because again, they're 16. Jumping over to Vestara's plotline, I don't think she's ready to drop her ties with the Lost Tribe of the Sith at all, because she's still willing to spy for them, to send them information. Lord Taalon beats her, and she's not happy about it, but she almost accepts it like this is just something that as an apprentice you have to put up with, but I could start to see the cracks in her understanding and acceptance of her culture here, especially in her willingness and readiness to help the Skywalkers, to kill Lord Taalon, and to like straight up knock her father out. I was a little surprised by that actually, because they seem to have a loving relationship when we first saw them in Omen, and then later when they were able to meet back up in Allies. So I was surprised by how readily Vestara, I don't want to say forgot about her father, but like he wasn't important to her like he had been in previous books. Regarding the Fallanassi, on the one hand, I do appreciate Fate of the Jedi's willingness to go back and revisit stuff from the Bantam era, visit these planets we haven't seen in a very long time. And the moon of Pider was from the New Rebellion. So sort of bringing two stories together here and having the Fallanassi from the Black Fleet Crisis settle on this basically vacant moon after the New Rebellion because it's a place of safety, it's a place that they can hide away. But at the same time, we don't really see much of the Fallanassi here, and they're so hostile to the Skywalkers because they've taken in Abeloth, they've fallen under her sway. And I think it's a pity because I do think that their use of the white current and their tradition is very interesting and something that I really would have liked to see more of. It feels like of the worlds we visited along the way in this series, the least focus was given to the Fallanassi on Pider, perhaps because the Skywalkers and then the Sith don't go there until like halfway through the book. We see Akana again, and then it turns out there's good reason she's hostile because Abeloth has taken her over too. We'll talk more about that in the issues section. The slavery uprising plotline continues with this uprising on Bladu Sextus, where the Octusi are protesting their enslavement. It's like a little bit complicated because the Octusi are somewhat sentient, but they're not all there. And they agree to be enslaved, so like, is it enslavement or is it a job? But obviously Freedom Flight has talked to the Octusi, and they're wanting to protest the life that they have, and they're doing it in a peaceful manner, and that's not something that Daala wants going on in this political climate right now, so she sends the Mandalorian mercenaries. And so that female Deveronian reporter shows up to cover it for the News Hour show, and showing us what a truly terrible guy that Mandalorian leader is. He kills her. And that's what turns the tide, what has the Jedi, who were sent there to put down this uprising peacefully and make sure that the Mandalorians don't kill anyone, in typical Jedi fashion leads to them throwing in their lot with the slaves uprising. I mean, you can't side with someone who's just killed an unarmed reporter on live television. Which, this felt a little heavy-handed here. Would the Mandalorians really have killed a reporter knowing that the outcry that would happen there? I would think not, but this guy has no problems there. And then we don't really see much of the slave uprising plot after this massacre on Bladu Sextus. We see that the Jedi are sending Jedi Knights to various worlds to help with these slave uprisings, but we don't see the specifics there, just that they plan on rolling this out, and maybe this will get picked back up in the next 3 books. And then finally, the Jedi on Coruscant. I feel like Kent took his let's take it slow, let's be diplomatic, let's not enrage tensions between us and Daala a little bit too far, but like I could see his side here, and at times it felt like the other Jedi Knights were being needlessly antagonistic of him. Guys, do you remember what happened in just the Second Galactic Civil War that happened 2-3 years ago? Do you remember how that all turned out? I mean, you had to kill Jason Solo, who technically was the chief of state at that time. You had a coup. Do you want to do another coup? It looks like you want to do another coup, because I don't see going forward how you can't get what you want without removing Daala from power. Who, again, is deeply misguided, but I can sort of see where she's coming from, like Kent. Oh, it just makes me feel bad for Kent. He should have never been picked for this position. They were like, Daala picked you for this position. And I'm like, no, I think it was more that Luke recommended someone that Daala wasn't immediately going to shut down, and Kent was ex-military, Kent had a diplomatic side. Unfortunately, Kent just didn't really want to take action. And I do think Kent at the end being like, no, I'm the boss, I'm in charge. Nobody, please don't do that. But it is still sad he died very much out of his depth. And I'm not sure choosing Saba to lead them going forward is the right decision. Saba has like that Barabel predator mindset. She doesn't really seem to understand especially human nuances. I'm not sure that's the right choice to lead the Jedi Order, and I think even Saba herself would say, I'm not the right choice to lead the Jedi Order, but they all picked her, so we'll see how that goes. And to be honest, when the Jedi had Booster pick up all these politicians for the charity event, and a lot of them seemed to be members of that conspiracy who wanted to get rid of Jagged Fell and then remove Daala from power, I was like, oh, are the Jedi finally on to what they're doing? No, they're not. They honestly did not know what they had. Likewise, Daala, I know the attack on Bwatu was supposed to look like Jedi, but I don't know who could have done it. And I'm back there as the reader going, probably that political conspiracy, Daala, but she doesn't pick up on it either. I just feel frustrated at times with Daala because it's like she's really dug her heels in to the wrong stuff. That in the beginning of the series, she had fair points about how the Jedi are just doing stuff and there's like no one looking over what they're doing. And like, yes, that's very fair. And part of that is what led to the whole debacle with Jacen, that the Jedi didn't want to police their own until it was way too late. But then to have Daala come down on the side of stopping slave uprising, still holding on to the Horn siblings, I'm like, this looks real bad for you. This is not helping you out at all. Kent was the wrong choice to lead the Jedi Order, and clearly Daala was the wrong choice to be Chief of State. We're just got a lot of problems going on here. And I am a little bit concerned about what the Jedi will do going forward. I do think that Luke needs help going after Abeloth, but I had wondered how they were going to deal with this tensions between the Galactic Alliance without a repeat of what happened in the Legacy of the Force books. Yeah, we're just sort of repeating events again here with a complete break from the legal government at this time. But on the plus side, Jaina and Jag seem to have worked things out, and they are engaged again, which I am glad about because I thought them breaking up in the previous book was stupid, but it all happens off the page. So I feel like they still have to work their issues out. Maybe that will be in the next 3 books. So my first issue with Vortex was more editing issues. I saw this in Aaron Alston's Backlash, but then there were a lot of editing errors in Christy Golden's Allies, where characters' names were spelled wrong, that we had the wrong aliens identified, just stuff that you would really think would be fixed before it goes to publication. And those editorial errors continued into Troy Denning's Vortex, and especially with Denning, who I know knows expanded universe lore very well, I found surprising. On the spelling errors front, at one point Galactic Alliance, Galactic was spelled with 2 L's? That's just a spell check error. And then when we first have Octoramus show up in a scene, she is described as being slender, and that made me do a double take, because I remembered when we were first introduced to Octoramus in the new Jedi Order series, that she has the muscles of like someone who's lived on a high gravity world, that this girl is built. Then when Jag shows up to talk to the Solos before they start their mission to retrieve the Horn siblings, he's described as tall. And again, Jag is taller than Jaina, but Jaina is 4'10". Jag is not a tall man. He's a starfighter pilot. They run short. And finally, in the scene in which Tahiri Vela realizes that her lawyers are at odds with each other and that she really just needs to stick with her original one, stick with Buatu, all of a sudden, Sardon, who is introduced as a Lordian woman, which means that she's humanoid or near human, is described as though she's a Faeline, that we have dorsal spine, she's got claws, she's giving off pheromones, and this made me wonder if maybe there was some confusion here between Sardon and the judge, who is a Faeline. But it was like, to introduce the character as one species and then all of a sudden chapters later she's a completely different species in chapter 30 is just definitely something that should have been fixed before this book made it to publication. My second issue with Vortex was just that I found that the first Troy Denning book in Fate of the Jedi, Abyss, didn't have his tendency to have hyper-violence, just had his tendency for like weird esoteric force stuff. And I was like, oh, well maybe I'll be able to make it through a series without having lots of violence and torture in a Troy Denning book. Nope. My guy, he got me here. When Luke is fighting Abeloth in Akana's body, it's really a bone-breaking fight. Like, he's cutting off her limbs, she's, messing with his throat, hearing the sound of bones cracking. It's just, I've said this in the New Jedi Order books, I'll repeat this here. I don't do good with heavy violence and torture and descriptions of such, and this started to get towards my oh, nope zone. And Luke kills her, and it's so sad. And then Abeloth walks back in, and she's back in Callista's body, and they fight some more, and then she sides with the Sith. And then so the Sith incapacitate Ben Skywalker, and they've got this force net on him, and they're pulling it tighter, and it's basically going to cut him into pieces, and we've got, like, blood pouring out all over, and again, I'm like, ugh, no. And then Abeloth is, like, in her Lovecraft form, and she, like, puts one of her tentacles in Taalon's mouth, and he's, like, suckling on it, and I'm like, ugh, no. So yeah, that was really gross. On the plus side, I will say that in Allies, I found the fight with Abeloth almost anticlimactic, that it wasn't thrilling. I felt like it was pretty short, and I was like, that's it. And this was definitely long and drawn out, and I was concerned for our heroes here. I didn't think they were gonna die, but they're in pretty bad shape. But yeah, Denning's just natural propensity to make things gross really came out here. But my third issue with Vortex seems to be the way in which the authors have chosen to address the Bantam era books by killing people off. After Callista said goodbye to Luke, although does it really count as a goodbye if they just looked at each other from across the landing pad and then she left? I always wondered what happened to Callista. Is she okay? Did she ever find what she was looking for in life? And then finding out that she found Abeloth and she was consumed by Abeloth is maybe the saddest ending I could imagine for her. And then if that's not sad enough, we get to see Akana again, only to find that Akana has also been taken over by Abeloth, and Luke has to kill her. And she has one final moment as Akana before she dies, and she's like, Luke, I'm sorry. And that's it. And I'm like, is this going to be what the rest of the series is? Just Abeloth running around finding Luke's exes and eating them up? It's probably very fortunate here that most of Luke's past romantic entanglements are already dead. Jem died in Dark Empire 2. Gariel died in the Corellian trilogy. Mara's gone. Shira Bray's gone. He cut her head off in Legacy of the Force. So I'm not sure there really are any ex-girlfriends yet, but if this is how the series is going to continue, all the missing links from the Bantam stuff, like the stuff that wasn't answered, it's going to be, yeah, Abeloth kills them, the end. I'm gonna be really frustrated because that's not really how I wanted their characters addressed. Like, they were consumed by a dark side entity. How sad. I wanted answers for some of these questions, but I didn't want that kind of answer. So, in short, Vortex really picks up the pace here with Luke and Ben desperate to confront Abeloth again, but hopefully he will have the Jedi to aid him from now on, especially after he came out of this fight in real bad shape. Vestara is throwing in her lot with the Skywalkers, again, seemingly for real this time, because she probably can't return to her lost tribe of the Sith for some time. And the Jedi have rescued the Horden siblings. They are going to help the slave uprisings, and there's probably going to be some sort of confrontation with Daala in the next book. Vortex got pretty gross at times though, which is not my personal taste and I did not appreciate. There were weird errors again, which surprised me. But I'm interested to see where the next book picks up. What will happen with Tahiri Vela's trial? And where is Abeloth going to run to next? And hopefully she doesn't eat another Skywalker ex-girlfriend in the process. So next time I'm going to be reading book number 7 in the Fate of the Jedi series, Conviction by Aaron Alston.